Thank you, Joe. Before we start, follow up on Joe, I just want to acknowledge our alumni that are here, our fans that joined us, and all of our staff being present here. This is a big day. It's a big day for the organization. I'm very proud to announce Rick Tocchet as our new head coach for the Flyers from this point on. So it's a big day. I'm very excited. I think it's an exciting time for the whole organization, and good times ahead coming up. Before you start asking me questions, the one thing I want to make clear is the fact that the plan doesn't change here. Rick has been part of this before, has coached some younger teams, has coached some veteran teams. We see him as the long-term solution for our head coaching position. The other part that we touched on before, I think it was at my year-end presser, you asked me what we were looking at for a coach. One thing that I said was we needed a teacher. And I think there's nobody better than Rick to teach our young guys. I saw it firsthand myself when I came in the league as a 19, 20-year-old. I had the chance to play with Rick, and he was a mentor to myself, and I learned a lot from him. One of the things is, the time he spent on the ice working on his craft, and now he wants to pass that on. He's done it for the last few years, and I know he wants to do the same thing for our young team and our young guys that are coming up. The other thing that I mentioned was we needed a communicator. That's one thing Rick Tocchet does, is he builds relationships. He's good at it. I talk to a lot of players around the league, players that are still playing, players that are now in management positions, scouting positions, coaching positions around the league, and the one thing that kept coming up is how good of a communicator he is with his players, especially, and how he builds relationships. So part of the reason why I'm so excited to have him as our next head coach. Thank you, Rick.
Well, that was really good. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. I don't even know where to start. As I was walking out, Jonesy said you're walking the plank, so I don't know what that means. Listen, I'm so excited to be in this area. I was a young kid, 19, when I came over the Walt-Whitman Bridge to play my first game at the Spectrum, and now I've been gone for about 20-something years. Learned a lot as a player and as a coach over those years. I've been very lucky to get ideas off some of the greatest minds in hockey the last 25 years, and I hope to bring back some of that knowledge. But speaking for the area, the fans, how do you not love the Flyer fans? I remember, I think it was you guys held the draft here, I don't know how many years ago, and I was with Pittsburgh at the time. Let's hear it, boo. So anyways, I remember going up announcing the first pick, and I got booed, and I was like, man, I love these guys. So that's what it means to be a Flyer, right? Hard, passion, winning, going through this process with the ownership, Dan Hilferty, Jonesy, and Danny, the plan that they had, listening to where they wanted to go with this roster, and it really excited me where they're going. We know it's not going to be easy. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's my job to develop these players. We got some really good hockey players on this hockey team, and I take it very seriously to make sure that they maximize their talent. I could go on for hours, but I'm so excited to be in this area, and I'm very appreciative of the ownership, the management, Dan and Jonesy, for giving me this opportunity and trusting me, with this team. So saying that, I'm happy to be back. Thank you.
All right, we'll open up to the main Q&A. Again, please raise your hand if you'd like your microphone and direct your question to one or both of the individuals up here.
Hey, Rick, over here. Al Morgani from NBC Sports.
Where is he? My suit buddy.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of options for coaches, like musical chairs. What attracted you beyond wanting to come back to the area for a roster like this and where this team is in a rebuild? What sold you on this as being a good place to be?
Yeah, I think as a, when you, as a coach or anything in life, you want to check the boxes. Stability, box checked. Relationships, box checked. The passion of, and then obviously the area, the fan base, box checked. But I'm a big relationship guy. I know just from the past being here, working with good people, I think makes you successful. So for me, those are the attractive things for me. Obviously the roster, the team, the potential, the prospect pool, the cap space that's coming here. There's a lot of positives for this job. It's an attractive job. It's it's one of the best, I think it's one of the best jobs in hockey. And I'm very fortunate to get it.
Rick, Kevin Kurz with The Athletic. You mentioned stability was the first thing that you just mentioned in the boxes there. When you look at this organization, that was maybe an issue for a little while, up until a couple of years ago. What gives you the confidence that it is in a stable place right now, not just maybe from a hockey perspective, but also from a management perspective?
Well, it's like I said, going through the plan. I mean, if you look at it, what do the coaches want? There's a lot of draft picks. There's a lot of prospects, untapped talent. The stability, obviously, of ownership. Sorry, guys. I walked around that practice facility. I walked around here, like the inside, the bowels, right? There's so many tools to work with. I mean, the practice, I have 3 sheets of ice. Like, as a coach, you're like, oh my God, these are the things you want as a coach. So those are attractive things to help me be even a better coach. So that's why I think I can't speak for the past. All I know what I see now and the relationship of the people that I'm dealing with now, and it excites me.
Hey Rick, Adam Kimmelman from NHL.com. You had Travis Sanheim and Travis Konecny in Four Nations. I know that's a small window, but are there any players that either you're familiar with or that you're most looking forward to working with here moving forward?
There's a lot of guys. I'm not going to get specific, so I could give you. We could sit for half hour and tell you why I like these players, but there's a lot of talent on this team. Speaking of like a guy like Sanheim, I remember for the Four Nations goal, I was in that meeting about what players, what defense, and I remember I forget where they had him on the depth chart, and I remember we discussed him and a couple of the high-level coaches, the Coopers of the world, and we all talked about, man, this guy can play. And then when he made the roster, how well he played in the Four Nations. I mean, I'm telling you, I was behind that bench, and that's high-level stuff. I had the best seat in the house, and to see him perform with the best defenseman in the league, so that's a big plus. To get a frontline defenseman like that on your team is a plus for me. And obviously TK, I thought he was terrific for just getting to know him, just as an assistant coach at the time. His work ethic, the way he was in the room with all these guys, I really was impressed with his leadership. So I'm interested, excited to work with a lot of these guys. I think I can really help some of these guys. Not to speculate names, but they got some star players here that in the making, and that's my job to really maximize those guys.
Rick, this is Charlie O'Connor with PHLY, but this question is actually for Danny. Danny, you mentioned about one of the big reasons why you think Rick is a good fit is his abilities as a teacher. You talked about him mentoring you as a player, but I guess what in Rick's track record as a head coach tells you that he'll do a good job teaching this young group?
It's funny, most people would probably focus on the job that he did when he won the Jack Adams a couple years ago, and that was quite the turnaround in a short amount of time that he did there. It was a really impressive year. For me, when I look at the track record, one of the most impressive part that stood out, and that's from watching at the time, was a stint with the Coyotes. He had, and I'm not trying to take it on the players, but he had a pretty depleted lineup at the time, and a team that probably was, I remember at the time the experts were saying that the Coyotes would be last in the NHL and get the first overall pick, and he made them competitive. They did make the playoffs the one year, and they were in the running, playing good games. So that body of work for me was probably the most impressive part of his coaching. And you can't forget what he did, part of the 2 Stanley Cup, being part of that staff in Pittsburgh, being part of the 4 Nations staff last year, working with some of the best players in the world. So, his track record is pretty impressive.
Hey Rick, Anthony Sanfilippo from Long Patterson. We hear a lot about your ability to communicate with players, and that's one of the things that these guys like the most about you, bringing you in. We've heard former players of yours talk about how much they've loved playing for you. As a guy who's played in a different era, how did you kind of learn to deal with today's athlete, and what's different about it now than maybe it was when you first broke into coaching?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think breaking in as a player, it's a different era, right? Coaches told you, hey, do this, and you just did it, right? You were scared to ask why. Now, this generation, they want to know why. They're smart guys, and they want to know why. We're doing this forecheck because of this. They want to know why we're doing it this way, and it's my job to make them buy into it, obviously, but you have to accept that as a coach, and I enjoy that. I'm a partner with the players. It's not a dictatorship. Like, you're not going to last in this league if you think you're going to tell these guys what to do every day and have all these type of rules. But I think if you partner up with a player, listen to them, and there's got to be accountability. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely, that's my job to steer the ship. But I think it's important that you let the players steer the ship too. And they have a lot of good ideas. I've learned a lot from a lot of great hockey players. I'm not going to name a bunch of these guys, but there's some high-level guys that I got a chance to talk to and, learn different systems or dealing with players. And then using your staff in different departments. You got science, you got the mental skills coaches, you got your assistant coach, you got management, ownership. You can't be afraid to use those guys. And quite frankly, sometimes some guys might be better than you at something, and you can't be afraid of a head coach not to utilize those tools.
Rick, Siobhan Nolan from the Hockey News.
Sorry.
You've mentioned how important it is for you to build relationships and communicate with these players. But as someone who is a former player, and you have that first-hand experience of being in front of these fans and being in this market, how much of a unique strength is it for you to be able to relate to those players firsthand on that level?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think when a player walks in that door, practice rink of this facility, they want trust, right? And they want accountability, obviously. And they want to feel safe, right? There's a lot of, sometimes people, the world we live in now, a lot of outside noise, and it can affect players. So my job is to create a safe environment for those guys where they can feel, as soon as they hit those doors, that they're taken care of, that, we're going to help them as much as possible and partner up with them. So, yeah, getting trust from the players is something that from day one is my goal, is to make sure that the players trust me.
Hi Rick, hi Danny. Jordan Hall from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Danny, this question is for you. You said you had a lot of conversations with Rick's former players. Did any names or conversations really stand out? Can you maybe shed a little light on what you heard from these players?
Well, I'm not going to name names that I talked to. I'm going to keep that private for them. But it was all positive. The one thing that kept coming up, like I said, was the relationships that he was able to create. A lot of the players would say you feel like you have a voice, you feel like you're listened to, and that you're part of the team. That's kind of the gist of most of the discussion that kept coming back. I was digging, I was trying to find some bad stuff, and unfortunately I haven't gotten there yet. We'll work on that later on.
Rick, Bill Meltzer from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com. My question is, towards the later part of the year, there were some very popular and highly respected veteran players that were moved out. Scott Lawton, for example. how important is it to you to see some of the younger guys there kind of take a bigger bite out of leadership and kind of bring the group that much further as a room and as a team?
That's huge. I think some of the former guys I played with here, they'll tell you the room is huge. The leadership, making other players evolve in that leadership role is huge. So there's some guys in there that have leadership qualities that we got to get out of them and give them a chance, give them a rope to be a leader. So yeah, when you lose, these type of guys, like, and that's the one thing I noticed when guys got traded out here, upset. And everybody's upset when you get traded, but nobody wants to get traded from the Flyers because they do stuff so well here in the locker room, a very tight group. That's what I want to continue. I thought Torts did a hell of a job of a hardworking team that cared about each other. So hopefully I can keep that tradition going here.
Yeah, Rick Sansport Keaty from the Hockey News.
Yeah.
I know you're in the middle of a rebuild right now. What positions do you think you have to upgrade to expedite the rebuild? And Danny, for you, do you think that having Rick here will help attract free agents?
First. Yeah, I think going through the process with Danny and Jonesy and Dan, I think looking at the roster, there's a talent pool here that's untapped. I really believe that, and I'm a pretty straight shooter. Now, is there things that you got to look at to strengthen? Of course, and that's the one thing with talking to Danny about and Jonesy, they're not shy about. They want to swing the bat. At what time? That's their job. But whatever I have in front of me right now is something play without the puck is something very important to me. Being a smart team that doesn't beat yourself. Protecting certain players is something that we can do around here. But I feel there's enough here to get the ball rolling and keep the ball going where these guys got the directions going.
And on my end, there's no doubt that Rick is going to make us more enticing for players to come here. There's no doubt about that. There's already agents calling and letting us know that, and that's kudos to him for the relationship that he's built and the reputation that he's built over the years. It's so positive in that regard that there's no doubt in my mind that yes, it's going to make us more of an attractive team to join.
Hi Rick, hi Danny. Haley Taylor, Simon here from Philly Sports Network. Have you thought about any assistant coaches and more specifically how to address the power play heading into next season?
Yeah, my head's already going. We got some things we're looking at. I think it's important that we do this properly. Yeah, the power play is a sore point, and I get it. It's something that we're going to have to dive into. I have some thoughts. Excuse me. I have some thoughts on it, and there's some really good people out there that we'll take a look at. And there's some guys I think on this team that we can unleash, because there's some guys there that have offensive minds, and we got to let these guys be creative out there with the power play. But just like anything, a good PK, power play 5-on-5, you got to have all elements to be a good hockey team. So we'll dive into that as the days go on.
Rick, you've had the privilege of coaching some really high-end players during your time. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Steven Stamkos, Quinn Hughes. You have a guy here in Matvei Michkov who clearly has designs on reaching that level. I guess, have you given thought to kind of your plan to help him get there?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to rely on the staff here to help me understand who he is. But just watching, I remember, I didn't see a ton of Flyer games, but I saw enough where there was a stretch where he scored out a bunch of overtime goals, and some of his plays he made, he's got a high-level brain, so hopefully I can help, learn from him, but help him. But all those guys you mentioned, hard workers, they work at their game, they're in great shape, shoot a million pucks, always trying to look outside the box. Those are the sort of things I can help Mitch understand. From talking to Jonesy and Danny, he wants to be the best. That's a good head start right there. That I get a guy like he wants to be the best. He's willing to do whatever, and that's what it's going to take. So, you know, I'm very privileged to be able to coach a guy that high level guy. I know the fans already love him here, so can't see what happens in the next 5 years with this guy.
Do 2 or 3 more questions?
Rick, the guys in charge here, obviously Danny and Keith and Dan Hilferty have talked about the importance of team culture.
Yeah.
Obviously, last year in Vancouver, there was a well-publicized, things went awry a little bit. What did you learn, I guess, going through that in terms of the importance of keeping things on the level from that standpoint? Is there anything you would have done different?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's tough to answer in 30 seconds. First of all, you know, I've answered this before. Huge JT Miller fan. We still talk today. Love the guy. Same thing with Latest Pedersen. Sometimes things happen, and there's not a bad guy. You know, sometimes people are looking for the bad guy in this. Some things just don't work out, and you have to move on from it. Have I learned from things? Yeah, differently. Yeah, I think we exhausted as a group. I thought I was lucky to work for Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvin, and Francesco Aquilini, unbelievable owner. They were right by my side, supporting the whole time. Could we have done something different? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I did learn a lot from that time there. But even during that tumultuous time, I mean, the one thing I was proud of the players that, we had a lot of injuries. I'm not going to get into the excuses, but I'm really proud of that team that we were only a few points out of a playoff spot with all that went on. So I give the players a lot of credit for that. But yeah, it's something that you always learn from experiences and evolve as a coach, 100%. Is that didn't you have a second question? That was it? Okay.
Chris Therien, Snow the goalie. Obviously, we have a history of playing together.
Yeah.
When I look at your career, Rick, and what you were for the Flyers and other teams, and then your post-career, when you look at what you're doing now, what parts of your learning experience do you take the most from your playing days or your coaching days, and also what coach along the way, if you'd say, had an impact on your career?
Yeah. I think, Bundy, for me, like, I learned as a coach, but I actually try to put myself in a seat. Like, if I'm a coach, what do I want to hear the coach, or what do I want from the coach? Like, not to bring up the campfire stories, but the year 2000 when I said Johnny, like the memories of that year. We fell short, obviously, Game 7, but the closeness of that team. What can a coach do to help provide a close team like that? And give the players the success and the tools. So I think as a player, put my player hat on when I played from those experiences, it helps me as a coach. And as a coach, I think just learning from, like I said, I was 2 weeks in Montreal and Boston for the 4 days with John Cooper, Bruce Cassidy, Pete DeBoer. I mean, those guys are high-level guys. Just to be in the room with those guys, learning from those guys is invaluable. Over the years, see Mike Keenan was a great influence on some of the techniques that he did as a coach. I really enjoyed playing for a guy like Jim Schoenfeld. He was a guy, maybe Jonesy was maybe not so much. But guys like that are old school, but also ahead of their time. So I think it's important. I've learned a lot from as a coach and a player. But I do try to put my player hat, or as a player when I played. I said, like, when I talk to the players, I think, what is he thinking as a player that I want as a player too? So I think that helps me, when it deals with players.
Last question, please.
Hey Rick, it's Billy Schwein from 97.3 ESPN. The Flyers haven't made the playoffs in 5 years, and we've been told, obviously, it's a rebuild. Yep. What are your expectations for this team this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, getting everybody, get the team to play better. Like every individual has untapped talent, right? To whatever level it is, it's my job to untap it. I think the direction, I know where this is going, and I like the direction. I actually love the direction that these guys have laid out. I believe in it, and I want to be part of the solution. It's just not me. It's not about Rick Tocchet. It's about everybody. But for me, I know what I got to do to keep this ball going. and there's a lot of tools here to work with. That's what has attracted me, Billy, to this job.
All right, thank you, Danny. Rick?